Hey everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Optimizing Your Forms for Mobile Devices. Today, happy to have everyone here. We'll go ahead and give everyone just a few more minutes as some more folks trickle in, and then we will hop right in. I was just telling Joelle, I live in North Georgia. We are anticipating Hurricane Helene to hit tomorrow. So we're hunkering down, pulling out all the batteries, filling the water bottles, doing all the things, gassing up the generator, and hoping to weather the storm safely. So hope everyone in my area or Florida is also doing the same and hunker down, staying safe. All right, it looks like we've got some folks in, so we'll go ahead and hop in. Just to introduce myself really quick, I'm Cami. I'm our product marketing specialist here at Form Assembly. Excited to be hosting today alongside Joelle. Again, we'll be talking optimizing your forms for mobile devices. Just want to reiterate that this will be forms for mobile devices, not necessarily our mobile app. So just a couple of housekeeping items. We do have our Q&A box located to your right. Go ahead and drop in any questions you might have as they come up. We'll do a live Q&A session at the end where Joelle will get to as many questions as she can. Additionally, we have a resources section that has a couple of resources for you. Go ahead and check those out. One of those being something that's very special to me, which is our VIP group. If you're not in our VIP group, I highly encourage you to go ahead and click that link and sign up. There you'll find a lot of peer collaboration, some beta testing opportunities, and a lot of really cool perks, and it is free. So definitely feel free to hop in there. Would love to see everyone there. Additionally, On24 has added that you can react to slides, very similar to reacting to text messages or sharing emojis. So feel free to go ahead and drop some reactions so Joelle can see what you're really loving while she's presenting. So without further ado, I will go ahead and pass it off to Joelle to hop into optimizing your forms for mobile devices.
Thank you, Cami. Yes, so I'm Joelle Swanson. I am the product trainer here at Form Assembly. And one of my favorite things about my job is getting the chance to come here on these webinars and interacting and teaching our customers more about Form Assembly. So as Cami mentioned, today we'll be talking about ways you can take your forms and optimize them for your respondents who are submitting them using mobile devices. And we'll look specifically at the importance of form optimization, some of the challenges faced by your respondents when using mobile devices, and finally, some ways that I've personally seen and helped our customers to optimize their forms for mobile devices. First off, though, I just kind of want to get a gauge from you guys of, have your respondents ever provided feedback that they have trouble with your forms on mobile devices? I know in my personal life, I practically live and die by my phone. I hardly ever get on my laptop. So any form that I'm submitting, I am submitting on my mobile device. And there are some good ones and there's some not so good ones that I've seen out in the wild. So I'm sure you guys have probably seen the same and are curious of helping your respondents get to a better experience when they submit your forms. And then I did see in the chat as well, while we're waiting for responses, someone did ask if this presentation is being recorded. It is being recorded and it will be shared with everyone via email after the presentation. I think it usually takes about 24 hours or so to get through to you guys, but it will come to you guys after. So don't worry, it'll be recorded. Okay. It looks like we have about half of the responses, so we can go on ahead. And looks like, yeah, a good majority of people have said that they've received feedback from their respondents that they've had issues with mobile forms or their forms on mobile devices. So that's great. We can take with that and help improve that experience for your respondents, because one of the importance of optimizing your form is actually that user experience. And you want your respondents, whether it's on a mobile device, a desktop, laptop, whatever, you want it to be easily navigatable and be able to quickly fill out your form on mobile devices so that your users and your respondents have a great experience submitting your form. They don't have to worry. It's all there for them. Another thing when you optimize your form for mobile devices is that you can actually increase your conversion rates. When your respondents encounter issues or errors when submitting a form on their mobile device, they're more likely to abandon your form. So optimizing it, making sure that you avoid those errors, reduce those issues, can increase that conversion rate. Then we also have that performance, something that kind of sometimes gets missed specifically with mobile devices is you want to make sure when your form is being accessed using a mobile device that it is faster, more responsive. Our forms are getting more advanced, but sometimes they're not quite the same level as a desktop or a laptop. So just making sure that you have taken into account those loading times and overall performance leads to that better user experience. And then finally, or next is accessibility. So you want an inclusive experience for all your respondents, ensuring that your form labels are clear. Their responsive design elements helps to ensure that no matter your respondents, they can access your form, giving them more ability to connect with you. Then we have the reducing of errors. So optimizing your forms doesn't just help with mobile devices. There are features like address autocomplete, validation, input masking, several other things all make it easier for your respondents to enter in correct information from the get-go, leading to more accurate data for yourself, and you can have that going across all devices. The final one is consistency across devices. This one, you might have a lot of customers that might switch between a desktop or a laptop. They might save the response on a desktop and then access it again on a mobile device. Making sure that it's a similar experience between those two devices gives a better user experience. So you just want to make sure that you have that satisfaction and trust with your respondents by having that consistency across devices. So let's talk about some of the issues and challenges your respondents may face when they're using their mobile devices. This is just going to be some general information. And the first one, and probably the biggest one, is the fact that a mobile device is such a small screen. The small screen can make some of your elements of your form really hard to interact with, such as radio buttons being hard to select the correct one, deselect, things like that. The small screen can also cause excessive scrolling if your form is too long. It might also have the keyboard interfere with different elements of your form as it pops up and down when your respondents are filling it out. And then you also have to think that if your form's embedded on a website, if you have modals or pop-ups on your website, the small screen makes it difficult to exit out of those to then access the form. So just taking those into consideration with your mobile devices. And then the final common issue with mobile devices is that the fact that they are touch screen. This makes it very hard to select the right items, might have excessive tapping, other things. I know I've definitely tapped on something. I'm like, oh, I didn't mean to tap that. So always making sure that it's easiest for your respondents. Then looking at the difference between mobile and desktops is the load time. That is going to be a huge thing that you're always going to need to consider when having a mobile device, is if that form has large images or lots of text or other heavy computing elements, it can cause the form to load slowly or submit slower than it would on a desktop or a laptop, potentially causing respondents to abandon the form, have other errors or issues arise because of that slow load time on mobile devices. So just keeping an eye out for that. Then also the form appearance. A form that looks good on a desktop does not necessarily mean it's going to look good on a mobile device. A form on a mobile device might have text running outside of the form, making it difficult for respondents to see and read everything that you're trying to communicate with them. It might also have a variety of other appearance issues that, while might not directly impact your respondents' ability to read, understand, and submit the form, it is going to cause them to be like, oh, this is not quite as well done. So decreasing that user trust, the respondent trust and stability and everything. Then finally, the text fields when you're accessing on a mobile device versus a desktop. there are different experiences. A phone number field, for example, it might just pop up a normal keyboard, but it's harder, just a few more extra steps to submit the phone number versus any other text. Having validation or other things so that it's the numbers that pop up rather than the alphabetical keyboard gives that user a better experience. And then also clearly stating what you expect in the text input fields helps prevent any validation errors that your respondents may encounter. Versus a laptop, it's easier to see if there is a validation error, how to fix it, what to do, and making it clear to your respondents from the get-go what is expected in text fields helps them out. So let's take a look at how you can optimize your forms for mobile devices with Form Assembly. Now that we know kind of what things we want to do to optimize them and some of the challenges your respondents may face. The first thing in optimizing your forms is considering the simplicity of your form. You want to try to minimize the number of fields that your respondents need to complete, as this reduces the efforts required to complete your form, making it more user-friendly. Having a single column layout means that it's able to adapt easily to your forms or using that continuous line in Form Assembly. If you have more than one column, it can make it difficult, does not adapt well to mobile devices. So having that allows you to make sure that your respondents see your form in the most optimized way for no matter what device they are using. Finally, for simplicity, is trying to simplify your form navigation. This doesn't necessarily mean you have a shorter form or that your form's broken up. It just means that your navigation allows your respondents to know exactly where they are in the form, get to the different pages they need to access, breaking that up into multiple pages or sections, and making everything clear to your respondents so that they know, no matter at what point in the form they are, where they are, and what they need to do to complete and submit your form. That way they can also gauge how long it's going to take them to submit it. So for today, obviously, I can't showing forms on mobile devices is not as easy. So don't worry. I've got a lot of gifts that we've created for you guys that we can show you exactly what may happen on your forms when accessed using mobile devices so that you can see and get a gauge of what you can do to help your respondents out when accessing using mobile devices. So this first one right here is going to be a form that on a desktop looks perfectly fine. It is 3 columns. It's very pretty, very easy to read. But you can see here on this mobile device, you're having to scroll to the right quite a bit to see all of those different columns and different fields. This can cause issues for your respondents because swipe too much, it might cause the form to reload, erasing everything the respondent has already entered in. Also, depending on how your form is laid out, they might not even realize that there are more fields to fill out to the right that they have to swipe horizontally to access. So causing you to miss information or causing them form errors that they don't know how to access that form error because they can't see it because they don't know. So taking into account that, and then we can see when we have that same form and switched it up to a continuous line here in this GIF, all those forms are easily, or all those fields are easily seen on this form. And it still will look the same on the desktop because of that continuous line. So it'll still have the 3 columns on the desktop. So taking into account that small little switch from 3 columns to a continuous line, you still have the same experience on the desktop, but it allows your users on a mobile device to have a good experience, to be able to see everything and submit it quickly and easily. The final thing I want to show you guys as a gift with simplicity is going to be that example of simplifying your navigation. You can use Form Assembly's multi-page navigation with the page numbers that they can tap on and also the progress bar so that your respondents, as they are entering in their information, can see how much they still need to submit, where in the form they are, access the different pages if they need to go back and forth between pages, allowing them to quickly and efficiently move between the pages and submit your form. Then the next part of making sure or ensuring that your forms are optimized for mobile devices is having that readability. That readability means that you're going to have clear, concise labels and text that gives your respondents straightforward instructions that they can quickly follow and submit the form, reducing the number of text inputs and with dropdowns and selectors. Reading or typing in a small text field on a mobile device can be difficult, and keyboards can occasionally, like I said, obscure the text field, causing further issues. In Form Simply specifically, you can use drop-down menus to have choices if you know what your respondents are going to enter in. Or my favorite is actually the address autocomplete feature, which we'll see in a moment on a mobile device, that when you have it enabled on your form, allows your respondent to enter in their entire address, but then just type the first few letters. So it's very quick and simple for them to enter in multiple things at once. Then the final thing to help with the readability of your form is using visual hierarchy. Now, visual hierarchy means that your respondents will see things outlined, sections outlined, separated, extra space if there's a lot of text or something. It'll allow your respondents to be able to quickly scan and understand your form so that it's well organized and they will understand what they need to do to submit your form. And that is just kind of, like I said, white spaces, headers, separation, all of that plays a part in breaking up your form and making it more efficient for your respondents to quickly read. So let's see this first GIF. So like I mentioned, is that address autocomplete feature. When you have this feature enabled on your form, your respondents can enter in their address, and it will, when they select it, it will automatically add in every other field that is needed for the address. It allows you to skip several of those steps that they need to fill out. And then the next one that I want to show is kind of focused in on that visual hierarchy and clear and concise text. These next two GIFs are going to kind of play more hand in hand. This first GIF here, it shows a volunteer agreement and volunteer sign up. With this form, you have excessive scrolling. That entire volunteer agreement is here on the form, making it hard to see everything that needs to be done on the form. There's also excessive repeated options. So the text input fields, the titles are not clear of what they are needed. And then you can see the drop-down menu right here. It's hard to select, it's hard to see even all of the choices to sign up for volunteering, making this one not the best example for a mobile device. When on a form or a desktop or a laptop, this form looks perfectly fine and is quickly and easily read. Mobile device, not so good. But there are a few changes you can make to your form to make it much better. So this GIF here, it states that repeated information for those text fields right there at the top, allowing your respondents to know, okay, hey, this is what is expected of me, right immediately. Then also, instead of drop-down, that multi-select drop-down menu, it's checkboxes. So your respondents can quickly choose they can read, first of all, makes it much easier to submit a form. But they can also select and deselect their choices as they need to, making it much more accessible. And then finally, rather than the volunteer agreement being physically on the form, it is now a link there at the bottom of the form that their respondents can click, and it will open in a new tab so they can read through that volunteer agreement, decreasing the amount of scrolling that your respondents have to do to submit the form. Okay, so the final part of optimizing your forms for mobile devices is responsive design. And with responsive design, you just want to account for the adaptability of your form to the various screen sizes and really key in on that consistency across devices so that all of your users have that same experience. So the first one is going to be setting that input field validation. This allows your form fields to help reduce the number of errors your connectors may experience, your respondents may experience. You can also use input masks or in form assembly text hints so that your respondents know what is expected for them in each field and have that all the relevant information for the field right there for them. Another thing that is really great is using conditional logic to show/hide fields. Remember how I mentioned a few slides ago, reducing the number of fields your respondents need to fill out? Using that conditional logic really ties in with that because you can then use it to make sure you have every single field your respondents need to fill out, but then you're hiding those fields that maybe not every single respondent needs to fill out so that they see just the fields that they need to. They're not seeing excessive number of fields. And then the last thing, one thing that I always tout and will probably tout until the end of time is testing, testing, testing. Testing is really just so important because you're never quite sure of how things are going to work out. You might have used a design in one form and trying to apply it in another form, maybe not working out the best. So testing allows you to make sure that your form is loading correctly. It's not loading slowly. Making sure that the theming doesn't do anything weird with any extra images or text that you've added to this form versus another form you may have used that same theming on. It also allows you the time to check to make sure your validation is working correctly as you expect. Any other errors your respondents might have, you can test those errors out, make sure they're easily readable and understood so that your respondents can correct those errors. And just finally, testing can help you predict and understand the challenges your respondents may encounter when submitting your form and allow you the time to make adjustments and changes to your form to improve the performance and accessibility and reduce the number of errors your respondents may encounter. All in all, leading to a more successful form for your mobile devices that your respondents are using and having that excellent user experience. So let's take a look at some of those gifts for using the conditionals here specifically. So with this GIF here, this form has several conditionals and you can show each of the options just as relevant to that user. They're not seeing all of the information all at once. They're just submitting the information that they need, which really helps with that responsive design across forms. Now, for this next gift here, this is part of a reason why you always want to test. Something might react a little bit differently. You can see here, this one, that street address, using the address autocomplete, but there's a hint that is very quickly disregarded by the address autocomplete and covered up. So seeing that and testing here in the mobile device allows you to know, oh, hey, the drop-down hint that I have popping up may not be the best use here. Maybe we can change the hint format so that it actually shows to the respondent. So just testing out little small things like that can make a huge difference in your user experience and their trust that they have in your forms. And with that, making sure that your forms are simple, are readable, and have a responsive design really go a long way in making them a more optimized form when your respondents are accessing using mobile devices and giving them the opportunity to experience the best that you have of your forms and avoiding a lot of those issues that they may otherwise. But yeah, let's go ahead and open to questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Joelle. Looks like we've got a couple questions coming in. We'll start with a question from James. He said, is there a way to copy answers from one field to another on the front end? For example, copying the billing address values into the shipping address fields if the user checks a box indicating they are the same address.
Oh, yes, definitely. I've done that several times. All you would do is you would have two separate shipping address sections on your form. And the first shipping address section would be conditional on the checkbox shipping address is same as the previous address, the billing address. If that checkbox is not marked, show this one as just a normal shipping address information. Then the second section is just literally a copy of the previous one, but instead in this section, it will conditionally show on that checkbox address, shipping address the same as billing address, being marked, and it will be calculated fields for each of those shipping addresses that are looking at the billing address and automatically pulling in each of those fields from the billing address into the shipping address. You can also do that rather than having the two separate ones. It would require a couple more steps in the calculations, but you can have the one section as well. So there's kind of two options, depending on if you want the easier calculations or if you want to add a little bit extra to have that shipping address pulled in from the billing address.
Awesome. All right, next one comes from Bill. Are drop-down menus considered better, more accessible than radio buttons on mobile?
I think this one's a little bit more on a person-by-person basis. Personally, for me, I really dislike whenever radio buttons are on forms when I'm having to submit forms. But in terms of like form assembly, they're very much kind of on par of the radio buttons versus drop-down menus. They're both easily read and clicked by respondents using mobile devices. They both react very similar. Again, I think that one's more on which
Personal
one you like. Yeah.
So let's see. Bill also asked, are there general recommendations on font size for mobile?
Yes. Okay. So I would recommend changing the font size in your theming. Rather than, I've seen several people changing the font size with custom code or HTML and stuff in like the meat of their form. But if you change the text size in like the actual theming editor of form assembly, that is a lot more responsive than using custom code, because then the code within the theme looks at the mobile device and reacts according to the mobile device. So that allows the font size to be more reactive. So you might have a font size that on desktop is like 25, but then when you're accessing it on your mobile device, if you use the theme editor to change the font size, it'll automatically change it from 25 to 15, making it much easier to read rather than having like half words.
So we've gotten a couple questions about, Joel, when you talked about making columns in a continuous line. We've gotten some questions about, is that an option that can be selected in settings, and where would that be?
Yes, that is definitely an option that can be selected in settings. Oh, it logged me out. Give me just a second to log back in, and I can actually show you where to find that in our forms. Okay, and share screen. Okay, so when you have a section, if you click on the options for the section, you have the option here to display content in a column. You can add in any number of columns you want, or a continuous line, or a grid. I would always recommend, if you have a form on that you're expecting respondents to use a mobile device, use a continuous line or a grid. Both of these are more reactive and responsive to mobile devices. So the grid, if it is a mobile device, it'll automatically go in either the 2 lines or just 1 line, depending on the size of your text input fields and the mobile device. Or the continuous line, you can see here, it's got the 2 columns, and it'll automatically put them into 1 column on a mobile device.
Awesome. Let's see. James asked, any recommendations for a good mobile experience when a form assembly form is embedded into another responsive web page?
I would honestly recommend having it be a iframe if you are expressly expecting users to or respondents to access the page through their mobile device. And part of why I recommend an iframe versus like HTML or our quick publish methods is more because it could potentially, the responsiveness of your website could interfere with the code of the responsiveness of your form, but it might also not. So testing it out is always good. That the responsiveness of the website, why I say it might cause some issues and might want to use an iframe, is it might override some of the form assembly code that we already have built into our forms for mobile devices, causing issues, causing your forms to look weird or do a couple other things. That is part of why I say the iframe versus just the quick publish.
So we got one back here in the beginning I want to pop back to. Renee said, in recent months, we've had issues with mobile form submission, specifically with iPhone users who use Safari and have had to put help text saying Google is the best browser to use. Are you aware of this? If so, what is a workaround?
Yes, yeah, we've seen a couple issues coming from Safari. I know that they've been having quite a few updates with Safari coming in that Apple has done. We have been, our product team and engineering team have been trying to keep up with all of those changes to keep up and keep those forms as responsive as possible with Safari. But if you are getting a lot of respondents that are saying, hey, we're having issues, I would say probably embedding the form on using an iframe in a website. That helps avoid some of those issues with Safari that I've noticed from some of our other customers. Or you can just put at the top, just say, hey, we recommend submitting using Google, Chrome, or Firefox, or whatever other app or browser your respondents might use versus Safari. But I can say from my experience, I've submitted several of our forms using Safari. Unless you have like a lot of custom code attached to your form, there's usually not quite as much issue with Safari and submitting your forms. But if you are experiencing a lot of issues with your respondents submitting using Safari, definitely reach out to our support team. There might be something on the back end that is causing those issues, and they can kind of help take a look at your forms and those respondents that have the issues that your respondents have encountered and see what might be causing that issue.
A good reminder here too, we've had some other questions about very specific issues. Definitely reach out to support. That's what they're there for. They'll be happy to tell you, yes, this is normal. No, here's where we can help, or here's where you can find some knowledge going to help you navigate those issues. We got a couple more, Joelle, just kind of out of respect for everyone's time. We'll get through a couple more. But we had Meg ask, how can you manage when only the numbers will be needed on the mobile device keyboard?
Yeah, setting it to the expected input to be like numbers. That automatically, when you access using a form assembly form on a mobile device, it looks at the input validation and it's like, oh, hey, it's expecting numbers, and it'll change the keyboard to automatically be the numbers keyboard. I do know that, for example, one of the forms I used today, it has a custom validation using the regex. That one, that phone number obviously would not trigger the number keyboard, but if you change the input validation to numbers, it will have that. The email sometimes works to pull up with the keyboard with the @ sign for the email. That one is more responsive on Google Chrome than Safari. That one I've definitely seen, but definitely even putting the input validation to email will give you your users that kind of different keyboard experience as well.
Awesome. So Laura asked, is there a way to conditionally show the agreement language if the user is on desktop versus mobile? We have received feedback from legal that it is important to show the agreement language directly on the form.
Can you repeat that just so I can make sure I'm understanding everything correctly?
Yeah, it was question 6 too, Joel, if that helps. Okay. Is there a way to conditionally show the agreement language if the user is on desktop versus mobile? they've received feedback from legal, it's important to show the agreement language directly on the form.
Okay. Okay. Glad I had you repeat it because I misunderstood the first time. So there is a way. It would require the use of custom code to conditionally show desktop versus mobile. Just because our code, there's no way for our conditional formatting to look at specifically the operating software that the form is using to run. That all happens in the background. So the conditional settings are able to reference that background settings. But you can use custom code. I've definitely have seen several of our customers use custom code to change pretty much entirely the form for mobile devices versus desktop, but it's still the same form. So it is able to reference that background operating software to identify if it is a desktop versus mobile. And you can still do that with the operating agreement to conditionally show and hide that if you would like to.
All right, I think I've got about 2 more that we can answer, but Leslie asked, is there a recommended form width that works best on mobile? And I was just gonna follow this up with, we do have a resource in here that will have like optimizing mobile forms that everyone is welcome to go check out that might have a good answer there and have a few other answers. But Joelle, I'll let you jump into.
Yes, yeah. For this one, we do recommend having you can enter into where here I can show you actually. This one is I can easily answer it, but it's also sometimes good to see it. So when you're on your form, when you go to properties and the layout, this width, we have here the 700 or go away after the 700 or 100% right here. That is going to be the optimized for mobile devices. So just entering in like this one, for example, I don't have it entered in, might not be the most optimized for mobile devices. So just going in here and entering in 700px or 100% will help make those forms more optimized for mobile devices. And I do recommend going in here and manually inputting this width to make them more optimized.
Last one here from Melissa. So when I preview a form in mobile view, it changes my form to be very narrow, doesn't use the available size of the mobile device. I think she's asking if it does use the available size of the mobile device.
I know what she's asking. On the form builder, there's the option for preview, and it shows you the option to switch between a desktop view, tablet view, and mobile device view. I can say, honestly, the mobile device that we have as an option in our preview feature of the form builder is not the best. It could definitely be improved. But I can say that I have personally an extension that I use on my Google Chrome that I am able to simulate a mobile operating device, and it has the ability to go across different devices. So different phones, iPads, things like that, that I can be like, oh, show this operating simulation for this device. So I can see how those forms react for the different devices, which is even more helpful with testing because Androids and Apples do not operate the same, and they definitely have issues going between the two, and sometimes the forms do not react the same between the two either. But the mobile view form that we have in preview, it works. It's better than nothing, and it helps out to see what exactly, if like, for example, your text fields are too long or something, it will show that, and you can make those adjustments.
Awesome. Okay, I've got one more. I did want to address, we got a couple product questions and product map questions. Unfortunately, Joelle and I don't have any great answers for those. Hopefully, if you hop in the VIP group, we'll be able to discuss some sneak peeks of things coming up, but I don't have an answer about radio buttons or Apple Pay and Google Wallet improvements. Last question did come from Alex. They asked, is there an alternative for the calendar modal so that it shows the model on desktop, but a different UI for mobiles?
No, there's not a way to switch that. It's going to pretty much look the same on desktop as it does on mobile. But But that's definitely something that would be good as an option to submit as a product feedback request, definitely, of like updating the back end code for that calendar to be like, hey, make it easier on mobile.
Last one, Joel, someone did ask, what's the name of the Chrome extension you use for previewing mobile forms?
It is literally just called Mobile Simulator. I just searched that. It's a Mobile Simulator extension, and I added it to my Chrome.
Awesome. Well, that is the end of our questions. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We encourage you to leave feedback as you head out. But thanks, everyone, for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. And for those folks in the Southeast, stay safe and stay dry. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.